Hey guys, it's Q&A Tuesday. First question, Michael Yu. I do believe I've answered Michael's question before. Hey Roman, WOMD doesn't have to be only watches. Watch news from the computer on your desk. I'm interested to hear more insider information from you from your trip to HK Dubai, especially with the recent economic slowdown. You sell jewelry too, I'm sure some of them end up on your desk as well. Perhaps you can also consider investing in a macro lens to show us the finer detail, the beauty of the watches. Cheers. Okay, well, few-part question, but let's quickly give you an update on Hong Kong, right? And Dubai as well. Starting with Hong Kong, with everything that's going on there with the riots. I was actually in New York last weekend. I had family that came in from Ukraine. I took them to New York. I took a video of, actually the protests that are taking place in New York in regards to Hong Kong, not just the protests that I physically myself saw in Hong Kong. With that said, the business has slowed down. It's slowed down tremendously. My office is not doing as much business as it did, let's say, a year ago, both in the shows as well as out of my office. And the reason for that is because you guys seen the turmoil that goes on in Hong Kong. I'm sure you guys watch the news. Again, I'm not going to get into how I feel about the whole situation. I don't get into politics on this particular channel, nor do I tend to get into politics anyway, because the delivery method of news nowadays is more entertainment than it is anything else. But Hong Kong is not doing as well, and if these riots are going to continue, the business is going to continue declining, which brings me to Dubai. Dubai is another area where business has declined because a lot of that business was dependent on Asia. Believe it or not, a lot of the Asian business was geared towards Dubai. I know a lot of Asian buyers go to Dubai, as well as a lot of Asians that come in from mainland China or from within the Hong Kong area. There are a lot of dealers that are in Dubai that also have offices in Hong Kong, much like I do. If you go to the bigger trade shows that I attend, you guys have seen these videos, they are from Middle Eastern countries like Dubai, like Oman, like Abu Dhabi, Qatar, Bahrain, and many other countries within the Middle East. So I'm not going to talk specifically about Dubai. A lot of these people have offices in Hong Kong, and they're relying on that business, and that business usually is mainland China, just because of the amount of people that are out there and are spending money on luxury type goods, such as watches or jewelry. Our next big show in Hong Kong is in March, and I'm really, really praying that everything gets resolved by then and business would pick back up. I do know that once, and again, I don't have I shouldn't say I don't have a glass ball. I do have a glass ball. Ian got me one. But my glass ball tells me that if things get settled in Asia by March, then business is not just going to slowly creep back up. It's going to spike back up. It's going to entice people to start buying and put them back into the mood, and business will pick back up. As far as jewelry and as far as macro lenses, we've, myself and Ian have gone through a lot of trials in regards to how to show off watches. We've tried smaller cameras, we tried a bigger camera. The bottom line is that, yes, you can take a big DSLR, put a macro lens on it, and try to zoom in into all that stuff. And with the watches, it's still not the best, and it's also very cumbersome. I can't handheld zoom in to a watch with a nice macro lens because my hand will shake. So you have to have some kind of a setup where I can stick the watch under, and so on and so forth. But what we are working on, and this goes in line with your jewelry questions, is setting up another studio within the office. We actually already identified the space, and that studio is going to be much like the Watchbox studio. If you guys saw the collab I did with Watchbox when I went into their live feed, I was pretty inspired to see what they have. I mean, they have like a professional TV studio. They got guys sitting in the back with 50 different monitors, and it looks like CNN back there. And then there's a separate room where there's 3 different cameras, 3 different angles, and they're able to shoot up to 3 people, sometimes even 4. And if you watch that video, you'll notice us taking a watch and sort of doing this. Hold on. Which, by the way, I'm wearing my Type 20 Brigade 1951 case for a wrist check, right? And we did this, right? We sort of took the watch, put it up to the camera. As I put it up to this camera, you can barely see this watch because this camera is not equipped to sort of zoom in on this watch. And they had a camera operator back there, so when we did this with the watch, he would literally zoom into this watch.
Whoa! 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 Excellent, extreme close-up.
And really to a pretty good detail, and they were able to cut away to that shot. So we're gonna do something similar, and that's also gonna allow us to do more of a variety of a show. And one of the variety shows that we're doing is jewelry. I do have a fairly good knowledge of jewelry, but my jewelry knowledge is nothing in comparison to my watch knowledge. The way we decided to go about this is to figure out that find talent that has certain knowledge on jewelry and sort of do a side-by-side show. I did that once with Lindsay a while back. That show did okay, but most of you guys that are subscribed to my channels are watch guys, so it's going to be a hard hurdle to get over. I'm going to try to do one of those shows at least once a month, or maybe do a live feed, maybe bring in a model to wear all this stuff, because I know some of you guys buy gifts for your wives and your significant others. Some of my viewers are female viewers. I'm sure they would love to see jewelry and some of the insight on that. It's a great idea. So this is something that's in the works. This is something that we're going to do. As far as to go back to news, WOMD, or What's on My Desk, we're going to hit 100 in the next 8 weeks or 2 months, which made me think perhaps it's time to retire the What's on My Desk series. Aww. Because, you know, it does get monotonous, the same format. And rather than doing like sort of a What's on My Desk, I'm going to do sort of a general video, which is going to be my weekly show, right? Well, I won't call it What's on My Desk. Maybe I'll simply call it the weekly show. That doesn't mean I'm going to stop showing you guys watches. I'm still going to continue showing you guys watches, telling you the market values, telling you what the market is, what I feel may be a potential investment, what I feel is not, and telling you how it is, because this is what you guys love about this channel, right? But I'm going to incorporate more things like industry news. I'm going to incorporate more things like what's happening around the office, what's happening in the luxury bazaar world, what do I have coming up as far as shows, and sort of doing this general weekly show. And I think that by retiring What's on My Desk and doing the weekly show with Roman Sharf or something, I don't know what to call it, I will incorporate more of those things. Because I do mention things throughout my videos, whether it's Q&A, whether it's What's on My Desk, about what's happening in the industry once in a while, and how the market has tanked or not tanked on certain things. And I think I can certainly incorporate it into one weekly show, which will still have the What's on My Desk element, where I'm still showing you those watches, but at the same token put forth more information. Would love to get your thoughts on that. You know, if you guys can comment below, maybe even with an idea for the name of the new series. You know, again, keep in mind, I'm not taking away what I've been doing for the last year. I'm still going to show you watches. I'm still going to tell you market prices, but I will incorporate other segments into it, like, let's say, weekly watch news, my thoughts on the weekly watch news. I'm not going to sit here and report what happened. By the time I make these videos, that news has already gone viral and everybody knows about it. What I can tell you is what my thoughts are and what the effect on the industry will be. So that's the kind of vibe I would like the sort of industry news to have. Maybe I should do that as a separate, segment or separate video. I don't know. All your suggestions are welcome, guys. You know, I try to tailor my channel to what you guys like, so certainly comment below and let me know. And Michael, I hope I somewhat answered your question. Next question, or multi-part question, comes from Jacob Delafontaine. Number one, in a Producer Michael video, I saw that he was buying 15 old model Jacob watches for 50 off. At this price, do you think Jacob is still making money? I'll stop there and answer this question. By the way, I hope you guys checked out my latest video with Producer Michael. I actually was out in LA on some business, and I went into his office. Producer Michael happens to be a client of ours for the last 8 years at this point. And I did a collab with him, which actually brought me a lot of new subscribers. So all you guys that subscribe to my channel from the Producer Michael video, thank you and welcome. And I hope you stick around and enjoy the show. Yes, Jacob did make money on those watches at 50% off. And the reason for that is because what he sold them was what's called leftover inventory, which most likely for any manufacturer, especially if you're going back to models that are probably 10 plus years old, are surplus merchandise, which doesn't really cost him a whole lot at this point. So yes, he did make money at 50% off. And even if he didn't, all he did is he came off some old stock, which in turn makes him in a plus column, because otherwise those watches would just kind of sit there. What was so special about the Patek that sold for $31 million? I know it's a super complicated piece, unique, but is this the only thing that this watch has? Is it a new or an old watch? Did it belong to somebody famous? It's a brand new watch. It didn't belong to anybody prior to this. It's part of the auction, the Only Watch auction, which where they sell watches off and all the proceeds go to charities, right? So no, this watch didn't belong to anybody. It's a brand new watch. There's the only thing that's very special about it. It's the only watch. It's the only one of its kind. It's when companies like Patek and many other companies go out and create a piece unique for this particular auction. We had a conversation with Kuba when he was on my show. You know, we were saying things like, I think Patek bought the watch back themselves for the publicity factor of it. It turns out, no, that's not the case. It was bought by an actual investor, believe it or not, an Asian guy that invests into high-end luxury commodities such as fine art, antiques, and highly visible pieces such as this Patek Philippe. And we'll probably see that watch up on a block within the next 10 years. And my thought process is that the guy bought it for $31 million. as an investment, thinking that in 10 years' time, this is something that can be sold for maybe double its price. Again, I can't say I don't have a glass ball. I do have a glass ball. Thanks, Ian, for that. Now I have to come up with a new saying. I'm pretty sure this guy knows what he's doing, because based on his history of what he's been buying up over the last few years, I don't think this guy's just throwing money to the wind. And last but not least, I have an Omega 3523.80.0. Ian, if you can throw that up on the screen. It's worth about $3,000. But if you think about it, it's a super deal because you have the minute, the hours indicator, second, 24-hour indicator dial, plus day, date, months, and chronograph. If you think about it, it's almost a 24-hour perpetual calendar chronograph if you add the moon phase. Why do you think the price for this watch is low? Yes, a lot of bang for your dollar. I talked about this in numerous episodes of What's on My Desk, where you get a lot of bang for your dollar. And really, it's where the company positions themselves in terms of pricing in the market. Omega is priced much lower than some of its competitors. You take that particular watch and you put a Patek Philippe on it, it's a $50,000 watch. You take that same watch and you put it under an Audemars Piguet, it's a $40,000 watch. So it's really about the position that a company takes within the market and how they want to price their merchandise. And Omega took the stand of pricing their merchandise much lower than its competitor, and it's paying off for them because you said it yourself. You're getting a whole lot of bang for your dollar for just $3,000. So I'm glad you actually look at it that way, because I urge people to do the same thing. Look at where you can get most bang for your dollar within a price range that you can afford. And even though a lot of people can't even afford a $30,000 watch, they still tend to go with pieces that are a lot of bang for your dollar, and they'll look at it exactly the same way you're looking at it in your question. And I encourage everyone to do so. That's actually a great comment. I hope I somewhat answered your question, Jacob. Next question, and a good question at that, comes from Yeti. Hey Roman, great insight into your business. Thank you. I have some new questions. Most of the watches you buy are missing box and papers. I see all the brand new watches are bagged up with stickers, tags, etc. These naked watches too. I suppose it's not practical to transport all the boxes around. I assume they must be delivered afterwards. Adrian picked up 7 high-value watches after his shopping trip. What happened to them? Do you take the pieces back home with you personally, or are they shipped securely? Much appreciated. There's actually a very simple answer to this. No, most of the watches I buy are complete with box and papers, especially brand new ones. I actually shy away from watches that are brand spanking new that are missing box and papers. It's sort of a red flag. Why would a brand new watch not have box and papers? Majority of the time, you buy some of the older pieces and box and papers get lost somewhere by the original owner, right? That's how box and papers disappear. Where brand new watches should have box and papers. With the exception of Rolex. Rolex, you usually buy the watch itself and then you buy the papers. The boxes are usually sold separately. That's just the way Rolex trades among dealers. You have the watch, you have the papers, not the box. The box is $150. That's really where that's at. Everything else should come with box and papers. As far as you saying it's not practical to transport all the boxes around, you're referring to the video I did in Hong Kong, the last buying, trading, selling watches in Hong Kong video. Yes, of course it's not practical. You've seen in numerous shows how I pack these shows. I have these humongous bins in which I pack all the jewelry and the watches. Imagine if I had to pack a box and papers for every single watch, and sometimes I bring up to 1,000 pieces with me to this show. Would not be very practical. It would be super cost prohibitive. It's a lot cheaper for me to sell the items than take the box and papers and ship it to the client. Every single one of my watches have a tag that says box yes, papers yes, right? Sometimes they'll say box papers no, or box yes, papers no, depending on what's going on with that particular item. Once I make the sale, the buyer already knows that which watch comes with what, and then it gets shipped at a later time by my shipping department. It would be so cost prohibitive to take all this stuff with me. It's next to impossible. Adrian picked up 7 high-value watches after his shopping trip. What happened to them? Do you take the pieces back home with you personally, or are they shipped securely? Much appreciated. I never carry anything on me. Sometimes I don't even wear a watch when I travel, because as you can imagine, I can be a high-profile target. If I hand-carried some of my pieces with me, odds are I would probably get robbed, and it's the stupidest thing you can do. Spend the money on securely transporting your goods if you're a dealer, or even if you're somebody that travels with a multitude of items that you want to have in a different country somewhere. I still suggest, rather than carrying them on you, to use some sort of an armored shipping service to get them from point A to point B. Now, as far as watches we pick up elsewhere, there's actually a process. Bringing in merchandise into the United States is extremely inexpensive in comparison to some of the other countries, for example, Europe, that has an average of 20% VAT tax, right? So what we do is we have an office in Hong Kong, and once whatever new purchases we make, they get left behind, actually. Then my staff in Hong Kong fills out all the proper paperwork. I import them back into the United States. I pay my duties, and then they go into my inventory, and it gets shipped via a secure method. Depending on the value, it can go FedEx. If it's a higher value, it will go via a armored transport of some sort. Hope that answers your question. Here's one from Gary Smith. Roman, I know dress watches are not the best sellers nowadays, but any chance you can do a What's on My Desk featuring hot horology dress watches? Absolutely, Gary. That's not a problem. I have done a couple of What's on My Desk episodes on some of the dress watches. I'll ask Ian to link them below. You can check those out. In the interim, I'll do an episode on some of the dress watches as well. Here's a good one from Sanja Bojic. Hope I got your name right. Question for Q&A. In one of the last episodes, you said in the past you bought vintage Rolexes for under 10K and putting them in the safe. Eventually end up selling when market was at an all-time high. What, if any, watches are you buying today in a similar way? Is the Cartier Pasha the one that you mentioned earlier, or perhaps something else? Thanks in advance. I enjoy your content. Well, thanks for the kind words. I told you guys in the past, I'm trying to buy up as many Zenith yellow gold Daytonas on a bracelet with papers. I'm putting those away just based on the fact that the market doesn't make any sense right now, where stainless steel ones are trading almost as much as the gold ones. The Cartier Pasha is one of those questionable watches. I don't know. Cartier Pasha was also designed by Gerald Genta, for those of you guys that don't know, which is an iconic piece all of its own. The Pasha is indeed an iconic piece. It's also near and dear to my heart. It's the very first high-end watch I ever bought my wife at the time where I couldn't afford much of it all. And I think I spent like $1,500 on a stainless steel Pasha. Had the little grill on it, you know what I'm talking about? It being an iconic timepiece from Gerald Genta, one would logically say that these might be the next sleepers. The only issue is that they made very, 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 very many Cartier Pashas in so many different variations and so many different styles and so many different sizes and complications and blah, 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 that I don't know. And the glass ball that Ian gave me won't tell me whether or not that's going to be the next collectible. So to answer your questions, no, I'm not putting away any Cartier Pashas. Am I out there looking to see if I can find some of the very, very early ones and put it away because they're so inexpensive? I probably will. I would treat them sort of the same way I treat cryptocurrency. With the whole hype of the cryptocurrency a few years back, I just took an amount of money. I put it away. I never looked at it. I haven't looked at my, Coinbase or whatever the little wallet thing is. I haven't looked at it in probably a couple of years. I don't even know what the price of cryptocurrency is. And that was due to FOMO, fear of missing out. And I might do the same thing with one of these Cartier Pashas. But for now, you know, Rolex is always the safe bet. I'm putting away some of the older offshores, like the one you saw me wear, the D serial. I'm also putting away the colorful ones, the yellow, the green, the purple, the blue. There's like a whole set of them that you can buy, which I feel are sleepers as well. And some of the older, smaller Royal Oaks, the 36 millimeters. I feel like these things are still relatively inexpensive. They're under $10,000 and they are sleepers. But by all means, don't take my advice and don't go out there and start buying up all this stuff thinking this is going to be the great investment. Remember, it's an investment to me because I'm in the business. If you're not in the business, this is not, watches are not an investment, they're an expensive toy. So get out there, buy what you like, because by the time those watches realize value in terms of return on investment, you will look back and say, you know what, I was better off buying Apple stock or something like that, you know? It's just because I'm in the business, I'm able to do these things. I'm able to find them at the very right price, and I'm also be able to sell them when the market is high, because to me, watches are liquid. I'm in the business where to an average consumer, they're not. For you to get out there and be able to sell that item, you're gonna call somebody like me, and I'm not gonna pay you what the full market value is on it today. I'm gonna pay you enough to ensure that I leave myself profit to be made. So you can understand where I'm going with this, and I hope that answers your question. Next question comes from Tamayo Adawu. Tamayo Adawu? I'm sorry, bro, I hope I got that somewhat right. Roman, great video as always, thank you. I have a question for your next video. What are your thoughts on Jacob and Colt watches? It's a great question, and a lot of people tend to look down upon Jacob and Colt watches, and I'm actually in contact with Jacob and Colt to see if I can do a collab and actually talk about his higher complication, his current watches. But let me talk about Jacob, a guy that is also an immigrant, much like me, that came here in the 70s, and that opened up a tiny little store on 47th Street in a booth no bigger than the size of his desk. If that booth is still there, actually. It's in the very first exchange on the corner of 6th and 47th Street. His booth was in the back and then got moved to the front, but it's literally a showcase, right? And the guy made his fame to claim by making what people mostly dub rapper watches, right? There's numerous videos out there that feature people talking about Jacobs, showing off their Jacobs, and it was a huge, huge, huge hit for quite a while. The guy was a genius. The 5 time zone watch, right? With the diamond bezel, the ones that were actually, you can actually take them off, you can put it on a different bezel, you can put on a plain bezel, that didn't retail for a whole lot of money. You know, around $10,000, you'd be able to buy yourself a 5 time zone diamond bezel watch, right? It was a humongous hit. It was a humongous hit, not just among the hip hop community. It was a humongous hit in places like Russia. It was a humongous hit in other former Soviet republics like Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan and all the other stands, whatever you would call them, right? He made a ton of money and went from a tiny little showcase to a multi-million-dollar boutique that you see today on 57th Street, right across from Audemars Piguet. If you guys have ever been there, if you haven't, check it out. It's probably the most gorgeous boutique out there. And the watches themselves weren't that special. If you took the watch apart piece by piece, it was no big deal. It was just one of those jewelry fashion watches, right? But it took off like crazy because Jacob was a marketing genius and he took this to the next level. And then it was a break. Well, all of a sudden, these watches died. And most people would give up and sort of put their hands down and say, okay, well, I had a good run and I made a lot of money and now I think it's time to, I think this is it. But Jacob did not. Jacob quickly reinvented themselves. He went into jewelry heavy duty, started making Jacob and Company jewelry. And again, initially some of that jewelry wasn't like that high end. He used some of the same factors that I know other jewelry distributors used to use all over the world to create his jewelry. Till this day, my wife still has a Jacob & Co. necklace. It's like a diamond encrusted heart on sort of this thick chain that she loves to wear. And I've seen that same model piece of jewelry made for a manufacturer for another jeweler. It just didn't say Jacob & Co. on it, right? But he, again, revamped himself. He reinvented himself until he got to where he is today, where he's selling 6, 7, 10, 20, $30 million stones and necklaces and things of that nature as well, right? And then came the complicated pieces. Jacob said, I'm going to be back in the watch game. Just because my 5 time zone watches are not doing all that hot, I'm going to get into it and I'm going to start making complications, starting with things like the rainbow tourbillons, right? And pricing his watches up there, $500,000, $1 million, $1.5 million. How many of you guys out there are not super impressed with the Astronomia line, right? That is a ridiculous watch. It is an absolutely ridiculous watch. I've seen them in person multiple times. I've sold those watches. Those watches are indeed in demand, and they are extremely, extremely complicated timepieces. But to answer your questions, I am a big fan of Jacob & Co. watches, and jewelry for that matter. I'm more so a big fan of the man himself. He's a guy that one time fell off a high horse and got right back on and came back stronger and bigger than ever. If you guys are ever in New York City, I certainly suggest you jump by his boutique and check out some of the stuff that he has in there, whether you can afford it or not. I guarantee you will be blown away. So yes, I think highly of his watches, and I think even more highly of the man and the company and what he managed to accomplish from a tiny little booth the size of this desk on 47th Street to the multi-million-dollar boutique now on 57th Street. Well, guys, that's it for me for today. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. As always, like, comment, share, subscribe to all those wonderful things that you do to help this channel grow. And I'll see you guys next Tuesday.